All right, today's lesson is again on function. We're going to revisit functions. And so we have several examples. It might be a little bit of a longer video, but you need to watch it and understand the material. So make sure you're taking notes, writing all the examples down. All right, so the title is 5 for Functions Revisited. And the example 1, write this down, you want to find the domain and range of the relation. And then you want to determine if it is a function, and if it is not a function, you want to tell why. So remember, listing the domain is your input. The domain is your input, and it is your x values. So we're going to just list the x values. So here are the x values, -8, -2, 1, and 7. Notice that 1 repeats. So you have a 1 here and you have a 1 here. Now we're going to do the range. So list the range. The range are your y values. So all we're going to do is list them. And again, notice that I don't list the repeating ones. So I have a -6 here and a -6, but I only write it once. And I have a 4 and a 4, but I only list it once. So the question is this a function? And the answer is no. And the reason why is because there is an x that repeats. So the x value, where x equals 1, is matched or paired with both the -6 and the 4. So the x values can only be paired with one other number. In other words, the x values cannot repeat. So I would write that down. So the x value at 1 is paired with both -6 and 4. The x's repeat, and that is the reason it is not a function. Okay, next example. All right, in example 2, you need to write these down. If f of x, function notation again, so if f of x, remember f of x is the same thing as y. So if that equals x squared plus 4x, and then g of x is equal to 5 minus 3x. So the first one we're going to find is f of a -3. So all we're going to do is take and write f of -3, and we're going to use this function because it has the f, and then I replace the x values with a -3. So I am going to put a -3 squared plus 4 times a -3. And that's going to give me -3 times -3 is +9, plus 4 times a -3, which is -12. So I have 9 plus a -12, which is -3. For g of 5 here, g of -5, I'm going to use this function because I has the g. So I take and I replace the x with -5. So this would be 5 minus 3 times -5. And when I work that out, I get 5 minus a -15, which is 5 plus 15, and so I get 20. So g of -5 would be equal to 20. For example 3, look at it carefully and write it down. We're going to add f of 1 with g of 3. So that means I have to find f of 1 first, and then find g of 3, and then I'm going to add them together. So f of 1, I'm just going to, this is it right here, that's what I'm doing. I take 1 and square it, plus 4 times 1. So 1 squared is 1 plus 4, so that's going to make 5. Then I find g of 3, and I'm going to use this function. So I do 5 minus 3, and then substitute a 3. And so that's going to be 5 minus 9, which is equal to -4. So now I want to add those together. So I add my answers together. That's what it's telling me to do. So 5 plus a -4 is equal to 1. And that's your answer. Alright, so example D is here. And this time we're going to find f of -2 and subtract g of 4. So all I have to do is find f of negative 2 first. I'm going to get that answer, and then I'm going to subtract the answer I get with g of 4. So f of negative 2, I'm using this one because it has the f. So I have a negative 2 squared plus 4 times a negative 2. And when I do that, I get negative 2 squared, which is positive 4, plus a negative 8, and that equals negative 4. Then I do g of 4, and I'm using this function. So I take 5 and I subtract 3 times 4. So that would be 5 minus 12, and 5 minus 12 is negative 7. So I have a negative 4 and a negative 7. Then it's telling me here to subtract. So I'm going to take a negative 4 and then subtract a negative 7. Keep change, and I end up with a positive 3. All right, let's try the next one. Okay, for E, it looks complicated, but it's not that hard. What you're going to do is you're going to find g of negative 2 and multiply that answer by 2. So 2 times g of negative 2. And then you're going to add that to 3 of times f of 2. So you find f of 2, multiply it by 3. Once you get both of these answers, you add them together. So let's get started. First we're going to start with the g of negative 2. So that means we use this one. So g of negative 2 is equal to 5 minus 3 times negative 2. So this is 5 minus, these two together make a negative 6. I keep change, and I get 11. And then I have to multiply that answer times 2 because that's what it tells me to do here. So 11 times 2 makes 22. All right, then I'm going to work on the f of 2. So I have f of a positive 2, and that function is here. So I do 2 squared plus 4 times 2. 2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 is 8, so I get 12. Then this says here to multiply that answer times 3. So 3 times 12 is 36. And then I have to add these together because of this plus sign. So I'm going to take 22 and add 36 to it, and I should get 58. And that would be my answer. All right, so that's doing operations with function notation. Not very hard. You just have to be careful and plug everything in the right order and in the right function. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we're going to use this graph to answer the following questions. First, we have to list the points. That's number 3. Then list the domain. Then list the range. Then determine if this is a function. And then number 7, if it's not a function, what would make it a function? So that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to pause this and list all of the points. So you could pause it too and then double check. You could go ahead and do the domain and range to see if you know how to do it, and then determine if it's a function. And then we'll talk about number 7. So I'm going to pause this and work it, and then show my answers for 3 through 6. Okay, so I've listed all of the points, so check and see if you got all of these right. Then I've listed the domain. Remember, that's all of your x values without repeating any. And then the range is all of your y values without repeating any. And then it says, is this a function? And the answer would be no. And the reason that it's not a function is because of this. Let's see, how could I highlight that? So this point and this point. These 2 points make it not a function because the x is paired with 4 is paired with 2, and it's also paired with negative 6. So what would make it a function is we could remove one of those points. Remove either 4, 2, or we could remove 4, negative 6. If we removed one of those points, then it would be a function. Okay, so now let's go on. Make sure this is all in your notes. Make sure you have the graph and everything in your notes. All right, let's go on to 8 and 9. All right, for number 8, write this down, f of 2. So it's asking you, if x is 2, then what is y? That's what they're asking you. So if x is 2, then what is y? And if you'll notice, here we have x is 2. So if x is 2, what is y? And your answer would be 0. Let's look at another one like that. Number 9, f of negative 3. So if x is equal to a negative 3, then what is y? So let's find x as a negative 3. X as a negative 3 is here. So what is y? And you would find it right there. Y is going to be 4. So if you go to x is negative 3, you're going to go up to that point, and y is 4. 2 more. All right, this is the same graph. I put it on a separate page. So I don't have everything plotted now, so we'll just kind of do it without that. So if you have x, it's asking you if f of x is equal to 7, then what is x? So write that down. If f of x is equal to 7, so that means you don't know what the x is. That means, basically, remember, you can replace the f of x with y. So if y is 7, then what is your x value? So let's go where y is 7. So if we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this is where y is 7. So if y is 7, then what is the x value there? In other words, the ordered pair is 0, 7. So if y is 7, that means x is 0. All right, let's do another one like that. Remember, you can replace the f of x with y. So if y is equal to negative 6, so let's go look and see where y is negative 6. So y is negative 6 down below. Remember, that's y. This is your y-axis. This is your x-axis. So where y is negative 6 is going to be down here. So if we go down here and go over, this is the point. So in this point we said was 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 6. So where y is negative 6, x would be equal to 4. I know function notation can be confusing. We do have one more problem. We want to find the domain and the range. Domain and range. So I need you to graph this line segment, noticing that it has a closed end and an open end. Okay, so the point on the left is negative 6, 6. That's your x, that's your y. And this point is 8, negative 2. That's your x and that's your y. So the domain is your x values. So your smallest x value is negative 6. So x goes from basically right here all the way over to right there. So x goes from here to here. So this is 8. So x goes from negative 6 is here, all the way over to 8. So we'll put the x in the middle. So now we need to know what kind of symbol to put. Because this is a closed circle here, that means x can equal a negative 6. So the symbol would be x is greater than or equal to negative 6. But then this over here is an open circle, so that means x has to be less than 8. It cannot equal 8. Now let's try our y values. So we have y can be up to 6, and then this is a negative 2. Well, negative 2 is smaller, so I'm going to start with the negative 2. And then I'll list the 6, and then I'll put the y in the center. So now, y is right here. This is where y can be. This is where y stops, and that's a closed circle there. And then y goes all the way down. Oh, I passed it. It stops right here at negative 2. So it goes, this is basically the range. It goes from positive negative 2 down here up to 6. So can it equal negative 2? Because there's an open circle here, y cannot equal negative 2. So negative 2 I'm sorry, y is greater than negative 2, but because of the closed circle, it's less than or equal to 6. Okay, well, I hope that's a good review on that particular problem. And that's the end of our lesson for 5-4. And now you will have your homework to do. Make sure you do a whisk. When and where did you watch the video? Summarize the video. And then write down the questions and be sure to ask me the questions that you have on the video. Thanks for watching.